Hey everybody, so we are here at the Chestnut Street Log House. This is emblematic of what the entire town here would have all been, these type of log houses. These are German. You can tell that by the fireplace is always in the center of a German log house, whereas an English log house would have them on the ends. This is how they heated their homes, that type of thing. George Stites was the founder of Lebanon. At that time, it would have been called Stites. You also had, we visited Light's Fort. That is on the northern part of Lebanon. The Light family, or the Light, the L-E-I-C-H-T, they built that, and they sort of were in the northern part of Lebanon. They were both at like different areas of these creeks, because that's how towns usually got formed. But George Stites would have bought a whole slew of land from like the Penn brothers, and then he would have laid it out, and this is where the town would have started to be laid out. Stites, as it was known then, and then you had Hebron, which we visited, the Hebron Moravian cemetery. They were sort of competing for which town would wind out being the big town, and ultimately Lebanon or Stites won out. But this is what you would have seen throughout this entire street, all throughout this town, is a lot of the people, there were stone houses. If you were like a merchant or somebody of wealth, you would have that, or for the common people, you would have had the stone foundation and then the log house, because that was what was readily available. And this would have been from mid-1700s, 1780s, so French and Indian War, American Revolutionary War period. So we're going to check this out. You're going to actually get to see the Preservation Trust of Lebanon County. They're the ones that preserve this and do such a phenomenal job, and this is preserved because of them and their efforts. Otherwise, something like this of such historical significance would not be here. And you actually get to see inside this home what a home would have looked like in that colonial era. And like I said, this was emblematic of what you would have seen up and down this street. These are the homes that people would have had. We visited the outside, we have not visited the inside yet, so this is just a tremendous pleasure and a privilege. This is also on the National Registry of Historic Places, and that makes it that it's preserved, so nothing can happen to it. And once again, the Historic Preservation Trust of Lebanon County, they're the ones that preserve this, and this wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their efforts. So let's go inside, everybody. So here you even have, it has the Chestnut Street Log House circa 1760. So we're going to go around. They actually have, it's cool, they have the gardens like what they would have had back then as well. So we're going to go look around those here first, but you just see, it's just, these are so well built. They were made to last. Unfortunately, a lot, some of these homes may even have log underneath them, but a lot of them would have been torn down, a long time ago. But thankfully this is still here. So let's go around and check out the gardens, and then we will go inside and see that whole bit, because they have it set up just like it would have been back in that day. And you just see how pretty this is. I know they have one over in Anvil that we visited as well. They actually have it set up like a colonial garden. It's so neat. And you get to see what would have been, they would have grown at that time. We've also talked about gardens. One of the unique things over in Mannheim at the two places there, one of the things that was very interesting about that is you could tell the difference between, say, a Protestant garden and a Catholic garden. As the Catholic gardens a lot of times would be in the form of a cross. You'd also have Rose of Sharon and different things that you'd be able to tell the difference. But one of the cool things, they used to have like this, it's fables, myths, and also superstitions, if you will, that got brought over from the old world, which would be Europe, over to here, is you didn't go out the same door that you came in. And the same thing with gardens, you would see several gates, because it was something about not letting the devil follow you through or something like that. It's sort of cool little folklore that they have out there that's just so neat. So, and this is the cool part is you get to go in these gardens, and then they actually have everything listed what it is, and they take care of this regularly. And these are the things that they would have grown back then. So it's just so neat. I don't know what half this stuff is. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys know. You can see some of this stuff like bee balm, ajuga. And the cool thing is too, so many of these things, like these things here, they have medicinal purposes. Cliff does a series on the Wandering Woodsman channel talking a lot about these different, what we view as weeds, but they're actually really, really important. It's funny, in like Lord of the Rings, they talk about, which is obviously not real, but they talk about kingsfoil. And when Aragorn's talking to Sam, he says, Frodo had gotten stabbed. He's like, get kingsfoil. He's like, oh, that's a weed. He's like, well, it has healing purposes, and it's so true in normal life. And one of the things that was cool when people came over here, when they did get involved in Native Americans let them know these are the different things that can be used for these different purposes. And they had all kinds of these natural cures that are there. There's milkweed, columbine purple, just really pretty flowers. But like all these different things they would have uses for that would wind out being able to be used for whatever your ailments were. And it's just so neat seeing what's out there in nature, and like so much of this stuff that we've forgotten. Zucchini, I always love fried zucchini. It's not good for me, but like I do the potatoes, fry them up. I love frying zucchini. It's so delicious. Then you hear traditional tomatoes and peppers and all these different things. Oh, red raspberry. I used to love at our house. We had these flags. And then like the raspberry bushes, we used to have them all over the place next to the pond that we had as a kid. On the one side of the pond, there used to be these black and red raspberries. I used to love picking those. They were so delicious. Asparagus, rhubarb. Rhubarb I don't like. I had the one lady I did painting for, and she's like, hey, would you like some fried rhubarb? And I was like, sure. It was gross. Cucumber. So these would have all been things that they would have, in that day, this would have been common for, you didn't have a yard like we have today with grass. You gardened, you used the land to survive. They didn't have your grocery stores. You grew all your own veg, all your fruits as much as you could. You utilized whatever was out there in the land to help you survive and get through all this. So this is so neat, just seeing something like this. It's living history. So it's just exciting to be here, and what the Preservation Trust of Lebanon County does is amazing. The one gentleman here, there's a number of people, like we've talked to Tom Don Moyer. I don't know if we talked to him, but he's responsible for the Murray Schoolhouse and Monterey Valley Chapel, and those both being restored. And this gentleman is very much involved with keeping this alive, the history with it, and it's just so neat what they do to keep this alive, because it's these places right outside your back door that we have that are treasures. They're national treasures, but they're certainly our local treasures. So I encourage you. I believe in the summer they have, certain Wednesdays. I will put up the schedule, but certain Wednesdays he's here and he gives you a tour of the place, of both the cabin and the garden, talks about the history, what they would have done, and all these different things that is keeping this history alive for all of us. So let's go inside. So I had wished I had continued to film there, because Jerry, who was there with the other gentleman who was visiting, he went on to explain that particular garden. And Protestant gardens as well would have that cross, and you could see that. Now you could tell the difference is in the very center of the garden would be, like if you're Catholic, you'd have Rose of Sharon, something of that nature. And the one that was in the center of this garden is the yucca plant, which usually you think of the yucca plant, you're thinking Southwest United States, but actually it meant good fortune, good luck. So you would have that in the center. And like I said, I always thought it was funny when over in Mannheim, the lady explained that you never went out of, like in the garden, the same gate, the gate you came in, you didn't go out, because then the devil could follow you out. Whether, I don't understand a superstition, but it's the same thing with your house. You went out the opposite door or another door, then you came in, because the devil would find you out and follow you. But so sort of Jerry, if I had continued filming, he explained that first section, the section that had like the bee balm and the juga and the columbine, that's the pollinator garden.
That's specifically for the bees to come in, have all those different flowers to pollinate off of, and then pollinate everything else, whether your fruits and your veg and all those different things. Along the outside would have been the herbs part of the garden. Those are the things that you use for your spices and things of that nature. And then that other side of the garden would have been your veg, and the left side of the cross, and then the two top parts would have been fruits and vegetables and that type of stuff. Now the other thing that was cool of note that he said as well, you would also have the kitchen garden. Now they didn't really necessarily, I think they had one tomato plant there, but right around the house they would have specific things that would be utilized quite often. So they would have probably your more common herbs and spices, thyme, things of that nature, would have been right up against the house. Just so there was the easiest access. It was something that you go out, okay, we're going to use this, cut some off, take it in, utilize it, which makes sense. But and that little building that was right next to the garden, that was actually the outhouse. The Boy Scouts had gone in there and redug that. And Gary said that was quite a process, but that's how they found a bunch of those little pieces of pottery that will show. I think it'll be in part 4 when we go to the stooge and the camera, which are the bedroom and the living room. In the bedroom is where they have this case that has all these little pieces of pottery in it. And it's like a really quite neat. The garden itself, though, is actually taken care of by the Daughters of the American Revolution. So a big thank you to them for taking care of that and keeping that living history there alive, because it's so neat seeing a garden like that and seeing this is what they would have done. But the garden was of the utmost importance. If you didn't have that, you didn't survive. And Jerry also explained that, I think maybe in the third part when we're in the kitchen, he talks about a little bit. I think I do have that videoed where you'd have the father and the sons. They would go outside of the village somewhere. There would be another area where they had their farm fields, and that's where you would have your fruits and vegetables that you would be selling. So the father and the sons would be working out there pretty much all day. And the women would be around home. They would take care of the garden at home. And that's just how things were done back then. But this was really neat seeing this garden, how they have this, the importance of that garden, just sort of the little influences, superstitions, and things of that nature. But once again, very, very cool. Thank you to Historic Preservation Trust of Lebanon County. Thank you to Jan. Thank you to Tom Donmoyer. He's one of the major figures with those other buildings. And thank you to Gary and Jerry, who Gary's a caretaker and Jerry's the tour guide. I mean, they're both Gary. You'll get to meet both of them here in the next couple videos of what a great job that they do. This was such an awesome experience once again, just being able to be there and experience a bit of history, be able to have them impart their knowledge on this place. Been there since at least 1760. So thank you as always, and we will see you all about town.